Welcome to a special episode of Love You Like Crazy. Normally, my co-host Carrie and I talk about young adult books, but these special episodes contain discussions I had with people I talked to at PodX. One thing they have in common with our normal episodes is that they may contain spoilers for the books we talk about, and a few might contain the odd swear. With that understood, on to the episode. All right, so I'm talking to Hal Lublin from PodX. I am trying to keep my cool here.
Don't blow this. Please don't blow it.
Yeah, well, okay. I'll take that off my checklist then. Blow it is gone.
You were gonna really punt this one.
I was.
And then you didn't.
So, Hal Lublin is very accomplished, I would say. In the podcasting world, you're the co-host of We Got This with Mark and Hal, in which you resolve some conundrum for all time.
Yes.
One of my favorites
Public service.
Yeah. No, it's great. And one of my favorites was Best Theme Song. I don't know.
The TV theme song one?
Yeah, because the answer, which I'm not going to tell anyone.
Oh, no spoilers.
No
okay.
spoilers.
Spoiler-free podcast.
Listen to it if you want to find out. The answer you came up with was one that I would not have thought of in a million years, but completely impossible to argue with. Like,
really?
That's what I thought.
It's funny. Every episode, and it's good either way. The people are either have your reaction of I wouldn't have expected it, or that's what I wanted, and I'm very happy, or you knuckleheads. How could you have picked A when it was so clearly B?
Yeah.
But either way, people are engaged and have a good time. It's that's the whole point. It's these things that you don't even realize how much you care about them until two people are talking about it, and then you wish you were in the room having that conversation as well.
Yeah, but I always feel like, I don't always agree with the answer, but
Sure.
I always feel like it's well reasoned and argued, and I'm like, okay, I can live with that,
All right.
So
Wow.
That's apparently that's not always the
I
reaction
love it.
you get, but
there are people who still rip it. I think it was our first episode was should you put ketchup on a hot dog, and people still that is something people hit on still almost. My goodness, did we start it a little over 4 years ago?
Hello, I'm Mark Gagliardi.
And I'm Hal Lublin.
Since the dawn of humanity, one issue has gone unsettled. With the fate of the world in the balance, we're here to settle, once and for all, should you put ketchup on a hot dog?
Don't worry, people. We got this.
The fact that still lives on as a point of contention.
apparently hot dogs are big in the podcasting world.
They're huge.
Just
Who
a
knew?
big topic of discussion.
If you listen to a podcast, you might be eating a hot dog right now while you're listening to this. Enjoy.
Yeah. With or without ketchup.
Yes.
Let's see. Tights and Fights is about wrestling. And then you're a voice actor on TV.
Voice actor on TV. I have Good Morning Night Vale, which is a Night Vale recap show. And then I'm a cast member of Welcome to Night Vale and the Thrilling Adventure Hour, which was a weekly podcast that stopped in, it was based on a stage show that stopped in 2015, but has now come back as a studio-produced podcast twice a month.
Yeah, I think Thrilling Adventure Hour is where you sort of first got onto my radar.
Okay. It's a really, I just had dinner with Ben Acker, who is the co-creator and co-writer of Thrilling Adventure Hour. And we were talking about it because I had this thought, we're here at PodX and I'm doing a live Good Morning Night Vale with Symphony Sanders, my co-host, and Meg, who is our third co-host, is not here. So Jeffrey Craner, who is the co-writer of Welcome to Night Vale, will be there. And we're doing one of these big live shows. And I had this thought of like, how much does he remember of specifics of things he's written? And so I asked Acker the same thing because we did Thrilling Adventure Hour for 10 years as a stage show. Mm-hmm. And every month they would churn out a 80, 90 page script. So I wondered how much he remembered. And it's like, when you create something, you kind of let it go. You might think of stuff once in a while, but that also makes it enjoyable when somebody tells you something they liked because you're like, oh yeah, that was pretty good. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm glad it lives on.
Excellent. So I asked you to talk to me, because I'm the host of the Love You Like Crazy podcast, which is about young adult fiction. So I thought I might ask people to talk a little bit about books they remember from, when they were in maybe middle school, high school, perhaps a little older than that, or just a young adult book that they have a fondness for in general. And so I wrote to you and you said that you didn't really read a lot of YA when you were yourself a young adult.
Yes. So when I was a kid, it was a lot of Beverly Cleary, specifically all the Henry and Ribsy books and then the Ramona books, whatever was available up to that point. We're talking like had to be like mid 80s at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I got to middle school, I kind of transitioned into fantasy books. Specifically, one of my best friends, Jesse, got me into the Piers Anthony Xanth books, which at the time I thought were great. Now it's one of those things where when you look back on it now, you go, oh, he's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like creepy attitudes towards women in it, and the book covers don't do it much either way. But there's a lot of like I don't want to say inappropriate because that's kind of an odd sort of floating thing, but it definitely feels lecherous.
It for sure does. And I was exactly the same thing. I read all those books. In fact, so, I was a huge Piers Anthony fan, and I read all the series and things. And Piers Anthony is significant in my mind for that reason, and also because that was the first time that I was reading a book, and it was like, like the 70th book in the Xanth series or something. And I was like, I'm not enjoying this. I guess I don't have to finish reading it. And it was like the first book that I had that experience with.
I do that with television shows sometimes, and with book series too, where you're reading it out of some obligation to finish the series, or if you have sort of the collector's bug of, well, I have to read them all. I've already started. I think I stopped the Xanth books like 14 in.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this isn't whatever I enjoyed about those early books. I am enjoying much less now. And it's freeing, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, no, totally.
Do you also have this? So another thing I read, I think it might have been high school, was the Heir to the Empire trilogy by Timothy Zahn.
Oh, I didn't read those, no.
So I had read some Star Wars literature up to that point, like short story anthologies of the Cantina or the Bounty Hunters. And I started reading those books, and only 1 and 2 were available out of the 3. Third had not been released yet. And I was really struck at how cinematic they felt. Like he did a really good job as an author of making me feel like I could visualize it very strongly. It felt like a movie that should be made. And there was enough of a time gap between 2 and 3 that when 3 came out, which I was very excited for, I started reading it and realized that I didn't remember anything that had happened in the prior books. And I never finished it for that reason. That happened to me with Harry Potter too. I think I've read 6.5 of the books.
Oh yeah.
Because it just took so long. I read the 4th book in like 2 days, and then I had to wait so long that I was forgetting what happened.
Yeah.
Is that making it bad? Is that, do you find that happens to you? Has that happened to you with stuff before?
I don't know. I feel like I tend not to sweat the details too much. So I just try to pick up things from context.
It's probably a better way to go around it. I get very like anxious about it. Like, why don't I remember any of this? Was it not good in the first place?
Yeah, no, it's a problem I have that people are like, so did you like, this movie or whatever? They're like, oh yeah, I really liked it. And they're like, what did you like about it? I'm like, wait, hold on. I have to remember things about it now?
Nobody told me there was going to be a quiz.
Yeah, which puts me in an interesting position recording a podcast about books. But
but are there books or series where you do hold on to either specific moments in the story or you're more detail latched or whatever that term might be?
I mean, I think, my friend Craig, who actually is the one who recommended the Thrilling Adventure Hour to me, but he is like a giant Simpsons fan, and I was also, and I'm also a fan, although probably not as big as he is, and there's definitely those are the particularly, I guess, syndicated TV shows where but in the pre-internet era, you probably watched every episode 10 times just out of chance. There's just stuff that you kind of hold on to or remember. Now we're completely off topic, but I just
this is what I do. I pull the train off of the tracks immediately.
The episode where Milhouse gets a girlfriend, and there's like an A, there's like A and B plots, right? So there's the A plot where Milhouse has a girlfriend, and then there's this B plot where Homer is trying to do some kind of book on tape thing, but he gets the wrong books on tape.
We're out of subliminally slim. Just send him the vocabulary builder.
Yes, I do remember that.
And so there's this one point, so they're completely separate basically for the whole thing. And then at one point, Bart is like, I don't know what to do with this whole Mila situation.
Listen, Lise, I need some advice and Mom's not here. Why didn't you go to Dad? I did, but I couldn't understand what the hell he was saying.
And just the way that those crossed, I thought was the best thing.
Smart, very smart, well-written show.
Yes.
Going back to Xanth.
Yeah, good. Xanth.
What I liked about those at the time, again, I think I'm drawn to books that pique my imagination to where I can fill it in, but I don't like when things are left ambiguous. Like I want you to describe a room to me well enough that I am only filling in minor details rather than having to create the room myself. And the other way of doing that, where you do create more of it, is completely valid. Just personally for me, I like to have it laid out so that as I'm reading, I'm also running a movie in my head, which I don't think is unique to me at all. And I thought he did a good job of setting up that world, even though it's Florida. The world of Xanth is Florida. There's a map, and it's all fun pun names like the Ogre, Fen Ogre, Swamp.
Yes,
but it was an interesting idea that everybody in this land has a magical talent, and they're all different, and they manifest at a certain time. And you've got the good magician Humphrey in his castle. They did a decent job of setting up that world.
Yeah,
and the creepy female stuff, because it didn't strike me as creepy at the time. I was like, oh, seems so valiant, which again is dangerous. It's dangerous to have that modeling as a kid. Fortunately, it didn't affect me in that way, but there was something to that. Like, oh, this is clearly a fantasy in a lot of different ways. Like, oh yeah, you're a barbarian, and that's how you get a girlfriend, is by being good with swords.
Right. Yeah. Or the Chameleon, the character of Chameleon. Like when she's smart, she's ugly, and I think it's also when she's on her period. Like, there's a lot of not great stuff going on in there. And
absolutely,
there are definitely podcasts. I mean, there are other podcasts where people have dissected A Spell for Chameleon and the later Xanth books, and it's there's a lot of kind of misogyny and stuff in there. But I agree, like, for a young boy who doesn't know anything about anything, like the setting.
Exactly.
And should I be confessing this? Maybe not. But I had a map of Florida that I drew out on tracing paper. And then I tried to fill everything in as best as I could. It was totally obsessive. And man, what I could have done with all that.
What could that energy have accomplished? But I mean, that's the thing. You're supposed to get into, that's you figuring out your taste. You don't know at 12, 13, 14 what you like. So you try everything, and you get into things very intensely for briefer periods of time. And then you emerge as an adult at some point with sort of a mix of, I like a little bit of this, I like a little bit of that. At that age, you haven't really been introduced to a lot. I didn't really listen to jazz music really until I was out of college. And even then I just assumed it was something for my parents. But then as I sort of listened to it myself, I found the stuff that I liked, and your taste is constantly evolving. I will say that those Henry and Ribsy books are still very dear to me. And I don't think they have been sullied. Ramona either.
Yeah.
Beverly Cleary is such a good writer. Like, I could sit and read those today. My copy of Henry in the Clubhouse is mangled because I would take it into the bathtub and read it.
Oh, yeah.
If I didn't want toys, I would just sit and read it. And it would be, I can't even count how many times I read that particular book. But at that time, I thought to be a child in the 50s in this sort of idyllic peacetime suburban neighborhood would be really cool. Like, that just seemed like an ideal life. Of course, there's a lot going on at every period of time that is not okay.
Right.
But still, it gives you an idea of stuff that might have been going on and characters that you can identify with. And we had dogs, and I loved dogs. So I wanted a Ribs. I was like, who's my Ribsy? Who will my Ribsy be? Because it can't be the family dog. Who will my dog be?
Yeah. So the Timothy Zahn books, the Piers Anthony books, are there other books from the period that you sort of remember in that way?
I do remember when I was 14. I didn't read it a lot, but we would have like I don't know that it was quiet. It was like reading time. You just sit and read. It was like a quiet time. We didn't really have studying. We were in 8th grade. And we had a copy of Jaws.
Oh, yeah.
And so I read Jaws over and over. And I'm like, this doesn't seem at all like the film. There's a lot more weed in it.
Yes.
But it is like a fantastic book. And that was interesting to sort of read. Also a lot of, I mean, honestly, like a lot of Calvin and Hobbes, a lot of Peanuts,
Yeah.
a lot of Garfield. I was way into Garfield as a kid. I had all the Slim books.
Absolutely.
The Treasuries. I love those.
Garfield was the first time where I showed one of the comics to my mother, and she said, "Why is this funny?" I was like, "I don't know." She's like, "He's just being mean." I was like, "Well, I don't know. It's funny."
It is interesting how like it is a comic strip about the world's worst cat, like the worst house pet, beats up all the other pets, disrespectful to the owner, doesn't really do much except eat all the food.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he killed Lyman.
Right.
We don't know where Lyman went, but I'm pretty sure Lyman was just shred to ribbons because Odie was Lyman's dog.
Yeah, that's my recollection. Yeah.
So, but there's something about like I think Garfield is a way people feel sometimes, and it is cathartic to see it played out in the way that it is. Like we can't all be a-holes, but Garfield can.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, go ahead, Garfield. I'm in a real Garfield mood today. Real Garfield mood. I also hate Mondays, even though this cat does not work. How does Garfield know when it's Monday? How does he know? How is it different than any other day?
Well, he has an alarm clock that he sets. And
yeah, that's true. He sets an alarm clock so he can get up and do nothing.
Well, I guess he smashes I don't know.
Yeah, he constantly is smashing the alarm clock. He's got his bean-filled whack bonk that he uses to smack his owner on the head.
Yes.
Trying to murder a kitten.
Right. Yes. Normal.
He's neglectful of his relationship with Arlene. I mean, there are a lot of problems in the garden, but we love it. I mean, it's great. He's a great tragic character.
Yeah. Yeah. I went to Mohegan Sun Casino at some point. I was like, I forget why, but no, it was to gamble. That's why I went there.
Of course. Of course. Come on.
And there was a Garfield store there where you could buy original, like, drawing, signed.
Jim Davis prints.
Yeah. I don't think he had drawn them, but he had signed them.
Of course he had.
Yeah.
He's a good businessman. We had one of those suction cup Garfields on our car when I was a kid because you had to have one. Mm-hmm. That was just part of life. Kids today. Let me tell you something, kids today.
Yeah.
You don't even appreciate all the Garfields we had on our cars.
Turn your volume up on your podcast player right now.
Turn it up. And I want to tell you right now, get yourself a Garfield. Go on eBay. You can find a suction cup Garfield, but it'll be ironic when you put it on your car.
Sure, it'll be ironic.
It'll be like, oh, what's that cat doing in there? Oh, it's Garfield, you scamp. Stuck to a window again. Just like in the comics.
That's right.
Yeah. And the Far Side also, like, that was one of those things that I didn't inform my sense of humor, but it helped sort of round it out. When you see that's another thing you're developing at that age is your sense of humor and what you think is funny. And then when you go into comedy later on, all those things inform it in some way or another. They're all things that you can draw on, whether you connect with it or you don't connect with it. It sort of helps you build your roadmap to what you think is funny. That's constantly being refined, but that like bizarre Far Side sense of humor and how they put everything together wasn't really anything else like it. These sort of like just bite-sized bits of comedy. Mm-hmm. And then he stopped.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of amazing.
He walked away and like never a drop in quality. So there's something kind of nice to that you have a complete work to look at.
Yeah. Well, we just got the wrap-up sign from the place that we're recording.
The Netflix guy looked at it and gave you the nod, the Return of the Jedi nod.
Yes. But Hal, It's a total pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me. Enjoy the rest of the con.
Yep. And everyone out there, listen to You Got This and Tights and Fights. And
That's right.
Go back and listen to Thrilling Adventure Hour and Welcome to Night Vale and all the other projects.
Just go to hallublin.com. You can find it there or follow me on Twitter at Hal Lublin.
Even better.
There it
all
is.
Right, thanks.
Give me a call when you get back. Hey there.
Hey.
LoveLikeCrazy.com. Podcasts should have a theme song. Podcasts should not have a theme song. Yes, they should. No, they shouldn't. They sound good. Yeah, but people are just going to skip past it. You know what? You're right. We got this.